Financial Consulting Services and Unwind Financial Insurance Services. So let me tell you a little bit more about Unwind Financial. So there's a couple different things I do. One, as I mentioned, I do financial counseling for those who need financial counseling services, someone to really help them go deeper dive in the root of what's going on with them financially, dealing with financial challenges. I have experienced financial challenges and overcome many of those and know what it's like when you're dealing with challenges and real life circumstances and situations. And I love to take that and to really connect with people who are going through different things. I don't care if you have $500,000. I've worked with people who are making $500,000 to those who are on the street working full time or no job at all, dealing with medical issues, divorce, domestic abuse, different situations people have gone through. So I try to really connect and relate with them. Of course, can't solve every problem in life, but I do my best with the people I work with to do what I can to help them in solving a problem. I try to walk with them and identify things based on what they come to me with. So whether that's budgeting, debt management, savings, just trying to get back on track with their spending habits. They make plenty of money, but need to do a better job of reeling in the dollars. I like to say, called giving your dollars an assignment. So knowing where your dollars are going first before you can give them an assignment, right? So I talk about doing inventory, things like that, or someone's dealing with challenges with the business, or how to cut expenses with the business, or how they might need to navigate and pivot uh, with what they really need to focus on. Because sometimes business owners really need to focus better, and also know when to use systems and ask for help, or where to find money or grants or organizations they can go to connect and get some more assistance to move them along further in their journey as an entrepreneur. Because as you know, 65% or more of this country has been built, running, and sustained off of entrepreneurs. Plain and simple. Our government system was actually established and built off of entrepreneurs. Many of them use biblical strategies and insights to put structures in place. But at the end of the day, those were entrepreneurs, bankers, individuals who came together to start building structures with the small municipalities to eventually creating, government states. And as you know, the history is over time. You got big companies out there. I won't mention any names, but they have helped to establish a system for all of us. But those were entrepreneurs who helped to establish those systems over time. And so definitely there's different things I address anyway with helping people, whether you're a business owner, employee, contractor, it does not matter. If you're dealing with financial challenges, I would love to help you. You can go to unwindfinancial.org and to learn more about my services, learn more about me, and how I might be able to help you. And if you want to do a free 15-minute consultation to learn a little bit more about me, ask some questions, feel free. Either email me on the website at unwindfinancial.org. You can also call me as well. The number's on the website, and definitely would love to work with you. And especially during these times, I also wanted to address that the United States is in a very dark time. We've spiraled down more than I'd want to acknowledge, but it is what it is, right? The half a basis point that the Fed went down over a week ago, that's not going to fix the economy. It's a perceived value for some, like, okay, I'm ready to get into a home, or I'm ready to refinance. Are you ready? Don't just look at the number. You need to look at the whole picture. Um, Sometimes there's things that we just can't prevent, right? And it is what it is. But we have to do our best to try and navigate when we do see opportunities, but don't jump at the first thing you see or hear. Our government is still trying to stimulate the economy and grow the economy, but then you got to realize we have different municipalities, the local governments versus the federal government. That's a whole nother conversation as well. So where you live and the zip code you live in a particular city in that state, that also matters as far as how directly you're affected with the economy. There's a lot of systemic risk we've all been exposed to and we've been affected by, all the way down to the supply chain and the food. So these things are important to not take for granted. Yes, we have the elections going on. People don't know which way to go. But one thing I would say is don't wait for someone else to tell you. You start planning, setting goals, trying to decide, okay, if this emergency happens, where do we go? What do we do? We've got to start really preparing, or what neighbors or friends or family do we have close to us if we need help financially, or the power goes out. You guys need to be thinking about those things more and more. So even as you're buying a home, for example, you're preparing to buy a home. I talk to a lot of people as they're preparing to buy a home, and I just give them an honest picture based on where they're at and what they share with me. Sometimes buying a home now is not the best case scenario, even though they might be making $100,000. But let's look at the whole picture. Is it going to empty your bank account with what you do have in savings? If it is, what happens if you have an emergency? What happens if a system goes down? Do you have some alternate form or supplemental forms of insurance, if you will, like home warranty? And then even with the home warranties, you got to make sure you have the right home warranty that's for you. You got to look at the service, how they handle the claims, the reviews, what they'll cover, not cover, how much it's going to cost you. All those things are a factor, right? But you got to look at what are the most important things to you, worst case scenario. Um, and then also want to talk to you briefly about insurance. So I'm also a general lines insurance agent here in the state of Texas. So would love to work with any new clients here, whether they're in southern Texas, which we know storms and weather patterns have affected there, all the way up to here in northern Texas, where I'm located near Dallas here. So located around here, Aubrey, Frisco, Plano, you have Salina, Pilot Point, Little Elm, Denton, and so forth. So love this area, getting established in this area. I love the people, I love Texas, and I just want to help people mitigate risk is what I do, both on the financial end or help get restored first, and then help mitigate risk in the future as much as possible, as much as you can control it. So same thing with insurance. My goal is to help you mitigate risk as much as possible. There's nothing out there, even though like I even offer cyber coverage. There's nothing that is 100% proof, right? But you do your best to be 99.99% prepared and ready and secured as much as you can based on the resources you have in your hand, the knowledge you have in your mind, and then just preparing your heart mentally as well as just intellectually of what you can learn and just continue to do things. So you got to work with your family as well with these tough times coming. So with the insurance piece, my focus really helping people to make sure, for example, they're getting into a home, but sometimes they didn't have the right amount of coverage. Some people are just looking at, oh, okay, I have, I found the cheapest insurance coverage I could. Well, I can tell you right now, I'm not going to be the cheapest agent. I'm not going to be the most expensive, but I'm not going to be the cheapest service you'll find either, because I'm not going to just give you cheap and then leave you at risk because I just wanted to get a sale. That's not who I am. If that's what you're looking for, then go find another agent. Same thing when I do my financial counseling. If you're just looking for something quick fix and just keep it moving and not really assess everything long term, then find someone else to work with you. My goal is to really help people get settled and be established, overcome challenges, and how to prevent risk. So just a few things real quick, even on that end with the insurance. So people get into a home, right? But then they don't look at the different coverages. You got A, B, C, D, and F, which we'll talk more about later in multiple videos that I'll do. But for time's sake today, just like you have A, the dwelling coverage, right? Covering the property itself. You got to look at that. Okay, what does that look like? How much is your home worth versus the rebuild cost? So I've talked to people in the past where it's like, well, my home is worth, I understand that, but that might not necessarily be what you're going to get for your home if something were to happen, catastrophe with the property, or it's been considered a loss. Um, how are you going to cover those expenses if you're short by $20,000? When I've talked to those people, I feel bad because they didn't have the right amount of coverage in place, because half the people I talk to, they don't do insurance reviews. Their agent isn't reaching out to them. They're not getting at least an automated mail or something in place to let them know, hey, it's time to do an insurance review. So I suggest my clients do an insurance review at least once a year or anytime you have a life event. So life event could be, okay, we had twins. We got the house 6 months ago. We had twins. We had a new home room built on as an extension for the kids. And this is going to be something that we expect them to grow into over the next 10, 15 years. Great. How much did you pay into the building and the addition of the home? Those are things you got to think about as well, right? So people don't always think about it when they have renovations done or repairs or just other fixtures they've done to their property, where it's not only adding value to it, but that was cost out of your pocket. So if something were to happen, your home burns down, or there's a major flood, water comes in from the outside, and you have coverage, but because you didn't have the right amount of coverage, again, um, you're going to be out of pocket for the difference. And of course, when we're talking about flood, you have to get flood insurance separate. unless you have a particular policy that has a feature where you can add that on. Typically, the flood insurance is going to be separate. So that's another thing too. I've talked to someone in the past where it was during the pandemic actually, and there have been another storm in southern Texas where I asked the lady about having insurance in place and what she had, and in that brief conversation, she said, "You know what? I talked to my brother-in-law, and he's an insurance agent, and when I asked him about having flood insurance earlier on getting into this property, he said, 'Oh, you don't need it.'" Again, some people are thinking, "Oh, well, there's this floodplain, a 100-year floodplain, or it hasn't been flooding in this particular area and zip code." I understand that. And so, but you have to be thinking. And so what happened is she asked the right questions to the right person, but he wasn't thinking strategically or adequately prepared. I don't know how he ran his business, but unfortunately, she was over $20,000 in the hole and trying to figure out how she would get this flooded home repaired, the walls fixed, mold setting in, things damaged because she only had certain partial coverage for certain things under her regular homeowner's insurance policy, but she did not have flood insurance at all. And that was a conversation they were going to be having later. Unfortunately, it was after the fact, right? The other thing is when you're dealing with additional Part B with properties. So when you're dealing with Part B, you're dealing with like maybe a shed or a detached garage, or you're dealing with something else like some people have a quarters, little unit home on the side in the backyard or somewhere for their parents or family or their kids. Well, in those cases, do you have the right amount of coverage in place? So say you had something built onto the property, right? And say you had maybe 1,000 square foot um, senior home, a parent home, family home, whatever you want to call it, in the backyard. Maybe it's 100 yards away, maybe it's 50 yards. Regardless, it's detached. But you didn't update your homeowner's insurance policy and let them know that. Well, if something happened to that, say there was a fire in that whole property, guess what's not going to be covered? I don't care if you spent $75,000 on it, guess what's not going to be covered? Unless it's stated in your policy already. So that's something to think about. And then when you're thinking about rebuild costs as well, so typically the standard is going to start around 10% of a lot of insurance companies. You can always increase that uh, with your insurance policy. It could be 15%. Some might possibly go up to 50% in some cases. Again, all insurers are different in how they package their products and how they manage risk, including down to the zip code and location, the state that they're covering risk in. So that's something you need to consider as well. So this is why the insurance reviews are so important. Um, because if you're not doing a review on the different aspects of your policy, then you can be out of pocket for something. Even down to someone, if they get injured on your property, we'll talk about the parts F and E and F later on, but say someone gets injured on your property and maybe you had $1,000 worth of medical coverage, but you have a $5 million property or a $10 million property. Maybe they're your guest, maybe they're not your guest, but for whatever reason they get injured, or say an animal bites them, one of your dogs or a cat, whatever you have. Again, if you don't have the right amount of coverage in place to kind of appease that situation, to have them have their basic expenses covered, if they have to go to the emergency room and get patched up and have certain hospital expenses that need to be taken care of, then you're going to have to come out of pocket for the difference. But not only that, you want to make sure you have the right amount of coverage, whether it's auto or home or something else, because if you have $1 million property and high value properties, which I can also service those in excess of 10 million, 50 million or more. Um, but if you don't have the right amount of coverage in place and something happens and someone sees you have money, they know anything about that, then you could be in deep trouble coming out of pocket. And with one thing I want to say too on that with insurance coverage, what I love about it is, so a lot of people deal with situations depending on obviously the qualifying event, right? We're talking about insurance and properties, in this case, vehicles. You have attorneys that are there to help fight certain things for you. So if something happened, a claim, say it's just an erroneous claim, it's crazy. The insurance company has attorneys in place, they have adjusters in place, they have claims assistants in place. You have the insurance agent to help you through that process and walk you through that process. Um, all of those things, and I can go over that too with my clients as well, as far as just preparing for a claim and what things you should have in order, and going through a checklist of certain things if you do have to file a claim and what you need to send to the company. But As far as if you're high net worth, you have a lot of assets, and you don't have the right amount of insurance, and you get sued, insurance is only going to cover up to that certain amount, right? After that, if someone's trying to sue you for twice as much, you're going to have to be paying a check, or you're trying to fight it in court. And guess what? When you're dealing with an attorney, and depending on the level of attorney that you need to deal with in fighting this case, you're going to be paying the attorney out of pocket for certain costs. So again, these are things that can be preventative and covered under the right and proper amount of insurance in place with the insurance company. Um, I'll give you one case in point. So as a notary public in California, when I was there, I spent over a 9 year period. I've worked with attorneys for over the last 12, 13 years, but for about 9 years or more, I worked with accident injury attorneys, and a lot of fun. I traveled. I put over 170,000 miles on my vehicle doing it. I traveled all around Sacramento County, all the way to the Bay Area, going out to Madera County, 2 hours away. And I can tell you, driving 4 hours to service people when they're dealing with different issues, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, and I got to see a lot. Um, I met classmates of people who, person that was on the news, they've passed away recently. But anyway, I've met different people, people from Knights Templar, relatives. I've met all kinds of people doing that job. I got to work with veterans in the hospital, individuals, motorcyclists in the hospital doing intake for clients. So I understand a lot of that process, but I also helped with either picking up large settlement checks as well as just helping with the final status of processing the claims so everybody can get paid, funds dispersed. And one thing I picked up out of that, the clients tell you so much. You can know so much, but the experience that I had for almost 10 years working with these attorneys, it was an amazing experience. And the clients were always telling me things, whether they were literally up in a hospital bed, really couldn't move, with the cast and just having to sign their documents and put everything in order, to the pictures I've seen, some of them pretty intense pictures, because people went through some stuff. But one thing I found is you see a lot. And so having that aspect and that knowledge and experience, I also come from that standpoint when I talk about risk mitigation and things you need to look out for with your properties, and depending on the status you have with your businesses and just in this society, the economy, especially now when people are hurting, some people do different things. Instead of just treading through, trying to ask for help, doing the right thing, others, if they see an opportunity to sue, they're going to sue. And if they see, oh, well, they had this fancy um, Bugatti, this car was at least $1.5 million. This dude wasn't paying attention on the phone and hit me, and I'm suing. I'm suing. And, and there's people like that, and they have that mindset. And so you don't want to find yourself in that position, right? So one thing I'll say is I had a client in particular, a couple clients, and I'm gonna keep it short, but one of them, he had an older model. Um, I'll just say SUV, older model SUV, one of the higher end models as far as luxury vehicles. But he had done claims at least 4 times. And one thing I noticed, I was like, wait a second, this guy keeps getting hit, but I see the same vehicle every time I come to his place. And he would write it up. I think once or twice his kids are in the car, but he would submit a claim and file a claim with the attorneys. He would start going through the whole process. And I'm like, so people like that, it's person was nice and everything, but when you see it, just seemed kind of like they're not really wanting to make for more of an effort to do some things. That can be kind of concerning, right? And everybody has different situations. Don't know what all he's going through. I just know I got to get familiar with him enough over a particular period of time. And so I got to see a lot of things. And so I take that experience again, that knowledge, to say, hey, it's best to be prepared as much as possible. So you want to make sure everything is in place. When you bundle things, you want to make sure you have the right coverage. Stop just looking for what's cheap. There's companies, they brand themselves off of being cheap. I'm branding myself on doing what's right for the client every time. If there's adjustments we need to make, there's a new experience or a life event, a loss of a loved one, anything like that, they're going to be scaling down. You need to make sure you have the right coverage in place, but also the right amounts of insurance. There's times where you might need to have endorsements done as well. So these are just some of the things that I know I'm saying a lot, going over some different details and examples, but just really trying to stress the importance of both managing your finances and also mitigating risk. When you mitigate risk, you're helping to manage your finances. People don't always think about that. They just think, well, I have insurance in place. Something happens, I'll file a claim. Doesn't mean it's covered. You could be on a name claims basis, or it's a broad risk basis. So it just depends. So if it's named, the specific things are going to be covered in that policy. If you're with you staying where there's a HOA or COA, if you have certain covenants in a certain neighborhood and area, like with might be in certain townhomes that are connected together to condos. With condos, the HO6, there's certain things that ought to be covered and certain things that will not be covered. And they're going to protect the unit, the walls, any of the fixtures. That's what's covered under those policies, but you want to make sure you're covered. That's why it's important to have the HO6 policy in place or condo policy in place, because you want to protect your belongings. But also, if you were sued and so certain things weren't going to be covered, having insurance in place, that's going to help. So you can have attorneys fight the case for you and work with you on dealing with the claim issue that's going on. And in some cases, like with a condo, you might have where, and not just with the condo, it could be a community covenant that you have in place with the association there if you have a modular home or manufactured home. So same thing with them as well. There's going to be certain things that might be covered in the common areas, but not everything. So there's some policies that can be covered where there's a dog bite, but it also depends on certain factors, right? So it also depends on the type of insurance you have in place. So what you have in place determines your risk factor, risk exposure, your status even. Never take that for granted. The kind of money you make financially, the job you do, where you live, all those things can be found out by an insurance company, okay? And someone can find that out. And so you would just want to make sure you're well protected, properly covered, have the coverage you need in place, because what you think you're saving $1,000 here on can cost you $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 or more down the road because you were trying to be cheap. So don't be cheap, but be prepared with what you need for you and what's right for you. That's why doing an insurance review is so important. When you're looking at getting insurance, you tell me what you need. I have a form that you can fill out online, whether it's for builder's risk, auto, or home. I have forms online already. If there's something particular you don't see, you have a question about, you can email me as well. We can discuss it, or you can give me a call. All right. This is John Savage of Unwind Financial, but those are just some things I wanted to just share with you and just preparing. And just the last thing I would say, too, is going back again. And I'll go back over my websites. And it's just these lean times prepare financially because things are going to get tougher. The food is not what it used to be. I track food. I track different food from different stores we go to, the quality of food. So I've gone to different stores, a different type of farmer market stores and other whole food stores, if you will, to whether we're going to Costco or Walmart, different places I've been. If you're in Sacramento or anywhere in California, you have Aldi's. We have Aldi's out here. We don't have a grocery outlet out here. This grocery outlet, I've been really wanting them to come here. But anyway, you guys got to get out here if you're listening. But the food has definitely changed. And that's another conversation, right? For you, those of you who know what I'm talking about. And the supply chain is definitely tightened. We know we had a lot of losses and things consumed somehow or another, ironically, systematically, if you will, at the same time when it comes to whether pork, whether it's dealing with chickens, whether it's dealing with eggs or something else. So don't take this time we have for granted, especially if you're in a very secure financial place right now, or you think you are. You better do a review, take some inventory of your current budget right now, your spending habits. And sometimes people feel like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. No, it's not about not can't being able to do something. It's making sure you're managing your risk carefully. It's better to over prepare. My father was in the military for over 30 years, had been in the war, and he pardon me, and he would always say, it's better to be over prepared, basically than under prepared. And anybody who's been in the military, they know that. That was drilled into me. So just want to help you guys just to be prepared with your clients. If someone, again, is you're trying to see if the risk is right for them getting into a home and they need someone to go over their budget, I'll be more than happy to. My services are $199 for the financial counseling. And then there's an intake form on that website as well. Again, I'll go back over that. That's unwindfinancial.org, unwindfinancial.org. And then for the insurance, for those who need insurance and want to talk about the insurance side of the business, then you can go to Unwind Financial Insurance, and the website is uwfinsurance.com. So just like the name Unwind Financial, so it's U as in ultra, W is in wealth, and F is in finances, and then the word insurance spelled out. So it's uwfinsurance.com. And you can learn more about me on that website and how I can service you. There's the forums where you can upload documents and submit everything securely on the platform that I use there to receive documents for clients. If you have other questions, please go to the forum for contacting me if you have other general questions about my services or how I might be able to work with you in some capacity or partnering with you, whether you're a lender, real estate agent, broker, estate planning attorney. I've worked with a lot of estate planning attorneys or business attorneys, any of those, or anybody else in business, builders. Any questions you might have for me or want to reach out to me and submit for a quote, you'll know where to go on those websites. Again, this is John Savage with Unwind Financial. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit me. Please refer anybody you can to me. If someone has a policy or questioning their policy, they need a review, or they're looking for another agent to work with, then I would love to work with you. Again, I'm in the state of Texas here, and I just want to say thank you for all of you watching and for the clients I have on their way, and for those who are just taking the time to support what I do. I love helping people. I'm more one-on-one consultative. I'm not a salesy person. Anybody who knows me, whether working for a company, for work, or in business, they'll tell you that John is not a salesy person, but I'm passionate about helping people live well, be well, and financially be established and thriving, even in the midst of a downturn of economy, okay? So the sooner you get prepared, the better, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much, and have a blessed day. And in the meantime, unwind.